trophy time. You know what we're all here for? Let's just jump in the account, shall we? It's review time. Let's go. Alrighty, and today we have an absolute beefy account in AJ Radios, who is a veteran trophy hunter, with their first trophy being from 10 years ago, from, of course, Red Dead Redemption, and their first platinum was only 7 years ago, so there's a 3-year jump in, can you guess it? Assassin's Creed 2, because, of course it is, everyone who has an account from back in the day has Assassin's Creed 2. But let's jump in, shall we? So our first a lot of games here don't have platinum trophies, so we're off to a very good start with something that I actually really like to see, which is games that don't necessarily have a platinum but still get the love and attention. It's something I'm trying to work on myself at the moment. One of the games I'm currently working on being Turing Test, which doesn't have a platinum. But we've got 10 Second Ninja X, which is a platforming game where you play as a, believe it or not, a ninja. I think there's a trophy in this game where you get to play as a llama, so win-win. We then have a King's Tale Final Fantasy 15. This is obviously a sort of side companion piece to Final Fantasy 15 alongside the other 58,000 things that they released alongside that game. We've got a double stack of Abs Animals, which is an easy peasy, completed in 5 minutes. AJ, shame AJ. But no, just kidding. Play whatever you want. We then back that up with some ultra rares, so we've immediately juxtaposed ourselves with Aru's Awakening. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not even entirely sure what this game is. But what I am sure of is Actual Sunlight is something I have not seen in a hot minute. We then get into some Adam's Adventure Origins, which is like, if you went to Wish looking for Uncharted, you would get Adam's Adventure Origins. It's not great. It is relatively quick. As you can see, AJ did it in 1 day and 7 hours, but it is not great. I always see it on sale for like $1. I'll probably pick it up and do it at one point myself, just to say that I've got this this piece of gaming history, I guess you could call it. I wouldn't myself though. We then get some Airspeed Race, followed by Albedo Eyes from Outer Space, which I believe is a point and click by LucasArts, if I'm not mistaken. It's not LucasArts, it is Z4G0. Alright, never mind. I have no clue who that is. We then have Alex Kidd in the Miracle World, which is another platformer. I believe Alex Kidd was from the 90s, if I'm not mistaken. I think I have the Ringmaster of one of those installed. I think it was free on Plus, was it not? And I think I have that installed ready to go for the category comp, which do join the Discord and join the category comp. You've got to beat every single category by the end of the year. I dare you, I double dare you. But we then have some Altered Beast, followed by some Amnesia Memories, which is like the Vita spin-off to the Vita VR visual novel game that I've been recommended to play so many times in this series. I should do that at some point. I just don't have a Vita, sadly. We then get some Angry Video Game Nerd 1 and 2, which is based on the YouTuber who was a pioneer in video gaming on YouTube back in like 2006. I think he is still around. I certainly haven't watched his content in like a decade, so maybe I need to catch up at some point. We then get some Another World. Wow, I think at this point, our 100% are outnumbering our platinums, which is actually kind of cool. I don't think we've seen that on an account so far, and it's about to get so much worse with the arcade archives. But before we get into them, Apotheon, which is a side-scrolling game based on sort of Greek pottery and artwork and all that sort of fun stuff. One that I definitely need to sit down and do at some point myself. I see you did it in a day and 10 hours, which is actually quite not bad at all. Actually, I'm going to go in. I'm going to do some research for my own category competition stuff. What categories can I get on this? I can get a lot, actually. I can get platformer, role-playing, hack and slash beat 'em up. I might use it for that one. That's a good one to use that on. I'm going to use that one. No one else is allowed. I'm copywriting this one. I will sue anyone else who does this one for their own cop. But we then get into the archive, the arcade archives. We have Art of Fighting 1 and 2, Bubble Bottle, Contra, which of course is the famous side-scrolling shooter, Cyber Lip, which I've never heard of. Double Dragon is the Fighter, Robo Army, Sunset Riders, Thunder Cross, and X Multiply. We then actually have a platinum with this too, with Arcade, actually we've got a few. Arcade Classics Anniversary Collection is quite a lot of these bundled back in. I think it also has the addition of things like Miss Pac-Man potentially. We then get some Dig Dug, Galaga, Miss Pac-Man, well there it is right there, and then Pac-Man. Then we get into, AJ, I like it. We can then get into the Assassin's Creeds right here with a double stack of Brotherhood. You've done both versions of it with the server shutdown not affecting you. You got it done with a month to go in Brotherhood on the PS3. We then have both standalone stacks of Freedom Cry. I'll be interested to, in fact, I can see it below. I was going to say, be interested to see if you've done it 4 times with Assassin's Creed Black Flag. You have indeed. We then get Assassin's Creed 2 twice. Assassin's Creed 3, the worst one in the series in my opinion, is right there. You've only just started it. In fact, you put it down about 2 months ago and haven't gone back. We then get some Assassin's Creed Black Flag twice. I'm guessing you did Wolfpack for the level 50 in the multiplayer, or level 55, I believe it is. We then get Liberation twice. Obviously, Liberation was the Vita game that was kind of like a side companion piece to Assassin's Creed 3. It brought on some really cool ideas, actually, Vita. I really liked Liberation, not Vita, that's the platform. But I really liked, they did like a costume system. I think they called it the Persona system. So Penguin, if you're watching, I'm sure you'll love that. But it was like an outfit system where depending on what you wore, it dictated how you'd be received in certain areas. So if you wore, for example, like rags, you'd be fine to walk the streets. Whereas if you wore really fancy clothes, there was a chance that people would try and jump you and steal your stuff. That's not exactly how it worked, but it's a very similar sort of premise to that. We then get Odyssey, which is, in my opinion, the second worst Assassin's Creed. It doesn't even have any assassins. We then get Origins, which is quite good. It was the first of the Witcher clones and definitely the best of the Witcher clones. I'll be interested to see if you've even bothered with Valhalla, to be honest. We then have Revelations twice. I really need to do the second one myself at some point here. Again, this is another one that you jumped on prior to the server shutting down, so you have all the Assassin's Creeds potentially. We've then got Rogue once, followed by Syndicate, which is the Victorian London Assassin's Creed. It was the last of the traditional ones. It's okay. Assassin's Creed Syndicate is okay. It's not special, especially following the next game that we have here in Unity. It's just kind of, it just exists, and that's all it needs to do. Unity, on the other hand, was fantastic. It was buggy as all hell on launch, which is definitely a shame because, you know, that affected a lot of people's opinions on the game. But if you go back and play it these days, after it's been patched, it is really solid. It's the best one in my opinion. Interesting story. Arno was definitely a very underrated sort of character, which is a shame because, you know, he had an interesting arc that they could have potentially taken an Ezio 2.0 with. Especially in the DLC. The DLC is not great, but the way that he is coming to grips with things that happen in the base game is very, very interesting. We then get some Astro Tripper, followed by some Atari Flashback. The first Axiom Verge right here. I actually went and got the second Axiom Verge as Platinum the other day myself. It was very just okay. It was an okay Metroidvania. I've heard the first game is amazing and actually has quite a bit of challenge to it. I think there's some like no death runs and stuff like that that are a little bit on the tricky side, but you smashed it out in 4 days, so props to you, AJ. Nearly called you Axiom Verge. We then have Back to the Future, the game, which is, of course, is a very early Telltale game on the PS3. I think you could get it this way, or you could get it episodic without platinums. We then have Bard's Gold, which I have no clue what that is, followed by a early game by the devs of Hades in Bastion, which I think was a game that my good friends at Platchums did as one of their monthly games last year, potentially. We then have a lot of Batman here with the 100% in Arkham City, Arkham Knight, and Arkham Asylum. I thought I missed it there for a second. I am curious, AJ, are you going to be going for Origins at some point? I do know it has really awful multiplayer that has quite a lot of disconnecting and not a lot of fun stuff like that. But I am curious, do you plan on rounding out the series, or are you happy just having the rock steady ones? We then get both Telltale games. I think you've done both of them when they were free on Plus. Actually, that's a lie. Only the first one was free on Plus, but you did do it around that time, and then you did Enemy Within like a year later. Enemy Within is such a funny one for me because I don't remember what happens. I remember Bane is in it for a bit. That's all I've got. That's all I've got right there. We then get some Bentley's Hack Pack, which is the sort of side game, mini game, sort of spin-off to the Sly Cooper series, followed by Blasphemous, which I know is a game that I believe Beautiful Torment from the Discord has been doing recently. It's one that I was looking at doing myself recently as well. I think the wonderful OptiNoob has some guides on this game, which I will definitely be taking full advantage of. But you smash that out in just over a week. We then get some Blasting Agents, which I'm not entirely sure what these are, to be honest, followed by Blizzard's Arcade Collection, Blizzard being, of course, the evil corporation that makes World of Warcraft these days, and Overwatch. Remember when Overwatch wasn't awful? Because I don't. Next up, we have the fantastic Bloodborne, of course, the first Souls game that we've seen here, one that I've done myself on my previous account, but need to do on this one, and it's a bit of a rough situation. So my save currently is on a physical version of the game with DLC, and I got up to about the Shadows of Yharnam from memory, and then I bought a PS5, but the PS5 is a digital-only PS5, so I can't play that version of the game, and the digital version doesn't accept my save, so I'd have to play all the way back up to that point, which is not that bad. I can beat the game in about a day, but it's effort and I'm lazy. We then got some Broken Age here, which is another game. It's a sort of a companion one, you and a companion navigating a world. It's one that I've been meaning to do for a long, long time. I just never get around to it because, again, lazy. We then have Broken Sword 5, Part 1 and Part 2, followed by Bully, which of course is Rockstar's GTA, but in a school. Burly Men at Sea, this was free on Plus, very, very average, in my opinion. Not particularly interesting at all. Call of Duties, we've only got 3. We've got COD Classic, which is definitely a very impressive one. This is the original COD. Veteran on this one is kind of very tough. I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I remember there being a mission where you're in the back of a car with a Panzerfaust and you've got to like get through a German village or something. That was very difficult. At some point, this is another one I would actually really like to do myself. It's just adding a PS3 to Symmetry is a terrifying concept due to how big my backlog would explode. We then have Modern Warfare 1 and 2 remastered. 1 was free on Plus, 2 might have been free on Plus, I don't quite remember. Both very, very cruisy. They've both got a training mission that can be a bit tricky. You've got to beat it in a certain amount of time, but nothing particularly difficult, as you can see with AJ smashing them both out within a month. We then have Capcom Arcade's Cabinet, followed by Beat 'em Up Bundle. These, of course, are more classics from the 90s. AJ, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you are a little bit older than I am, but it looks like you definitely enjoyed sort of the arcade cabinet games and have gone back and are probably pretty nostalgic for them, is my guess. We then have Captain America Super Soldier. This is, of course, a movie tie-in to the Captain America games on the PS3, followed by Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, which is a fairly tricky Mickey Mouse platformer from memory. Castlevania Requiem, Symphony of the Night, and Rondo of Blood. This is the combo pack of the classic Castlevanias, which are Metroidvanias where you play as Dracula. We then have Celeste in 5 days. I am curious, did you do Celeste legit? I got the platinum in this myself very recently. I did the base game legit, and then went back for the B-sides and the C-sides with Assist, and boy, does that trivialize the game. You go from beating levels in like an hour, 2 hours, to beating them in like 5 minutes, which was kind of crazy. We then got some Chasm here, which is another one I've never actually heard of, followed by Clockwork Tales of Glass and Ink, which is sort of an I Spy, look at a series of objects and pick out the key ones that you need to progress a plot. Kind of like Ghosts of Maple Creek, if you played that, Enigmatis, which is a series I actually quite enjoy. Code Realized Guardians of Rebirth is next, followed by Coffin Dodgers, which is the like Mario Kart sort of arcade racer thing where you play as old people. Color Guardians is next, followed by Cornex Zone, and then Contra Anniversary Collection. Contra, of course, we said before, side-scrolling shooter, very, very classic, and very, very fun. I remember them being very, very difficult. But we then get into some Crash Bandicoot with 1, 2, and 3, all 100%. You might notice AJ likes a good 100%. We haven't seen too many games that are quite low, although I do see one that is surprising coming up below. We then got some Crazy Taxi, which is another one from that era of like the PS1. You're a taxi driver who's got to get passengers from A to B as fast as possible. This game has a banger of a soundtrack from memory. We then got some Crysis with only the first game. I am curious. In my opinion, the first game is the worst. It's a first-person shooter, but it's quite open world. You can actually do it on PS4. They've remastered the trilogy, but I will say I like the 2 and 3 a bit more. They're much more linear. They're more Call of Duty had come out and cemented itself by this point, and I found them a lot more interesting than the first game, and they've definitely aged a lot better than the first game. But I am curious, are those ones you're going to go back to? Got some Dark Souls 1s 100%. 2 only at 50%, which is very surprising. I assume that is just a playing through the game once. And I am curious, is this one you're going to clean up and maybe go back for the third game at some point? Only one Darksiders with the first game. This is the Metroidvania sort of one, and probably my favorite of the 3 that I've done. Day of the Tentacle is next. This is the LucasArts point-and-click one that I was thinking of when I saw Albedo earlier. Daytona USA is here, followed by Dead Nation, which is another one of those weird ones that I always see and think I should do that, and then I don't. Dead Space, we've got Dead Space 1 and 2. 2 having hardcore difficulty, a little bit challenging, but it's not too awful. You've got from memory 3 saves, I believe it is. So you choose wisely as to where you make those saves, and then when you die, you go back to that spot. So if you do die, you've got a lot of backtracking. From memory, the elevator was a nightmare. There's a bit where you're on an elevator for about 40 seconds, and it's a rough time from memory. I definitely remember that one being a real nightmare, but it looks like you smashed it out because you did it in 4 months, which is very, very impressive. We then got some Dead Synchronicity here, followed by Deadpool, which I believe was delisted or is delisted. The original Demon Souls, 2 years, 10 months. I can believe it. I don't like that one myself. Depona is right here, or Deponia. I am curious if we'll see any more of those on the list. We've then got some Detroit Become Human. Very average game. Very, very average. Tuned is here, followed by Takuro, and then we get into some juicy Dooms. You've got Doom, the original Doom you smashed out in 4 days. Doom 2016, I'm guessing you just didn't get into it, or you've done maybe the multiplayer to get that out of the way, potentially. Doom 2, I am going to assume hardcore 2-player. I'm guessing that's what you've got left. I've heard it is a nightmare, but we've got the Platinum, every level on Nightmare in co-op. I'm a genius, but I have heard that is actually quite a big nightmare. We've then got Doom 64, which it looks like you must have done the level skipping stuff for 1 hour and 58 seconds. I do know that you can use cheats to like wall clip to the end and stuff. Maybe I should do that myself at some point. We then got Downwell, which as the name suggests, you go down a well. Drive Club 1 and Drive Club Bikes, both unobtainable due to licensing with various different vehicles, so you can't earn these platinums anymore. I believe the servers might have been shut too. Ducati 90th Anniversary, that's a bike racing game, followed by DuckTales, Duke Nukem 3D, classic. This is the port of the 64 version of the game. Duke Nukem 3D Megaton, I think same concept. And then Duke Nukem Forever was, I believe, the awful one that was on the PS3 that came out like a decade after the rest. Dust and Elysian Tale, Energy Cycle's a bit of an easy peasy. Enslaved Odyssey of the West is an incredibly underrated game on the PS3. Definitely a hidden gem right there. I like to see that one. Ether 1 is next. I believe that might be a walking sim. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is definitely a walking sim, followed by some Fallout with Fallout 4 and Fallout Shelter. It looks like you did Shelter legit. I do know that you can use the console's internal clock to skip days and stuff like that to get that, is it a platinum? It is a platinum. You can get that one in sort of like a day, but it looks like he might have done it legit. And then, of course, Fallout 4 right there is a beefy boy. We then got some Far Cries with 3, Blood Dragon 4, Classic, and Primal. All of those but Classic being made by Ubisoft. They're your bog standard open worlds. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. If you like one, you're going to like them all. The first game, however, is a lot different. It was made by someone else. It's kind of like Crysis 1. You're on an island, which is kind of open world. And instead of, you've got mercenaries for the most part, and then the plot kind of flips itself, and then all of a sudden you're fighting like giant mutant lizard people, which is an interesting concept to say the least. It's kind of like stepping outside in Australia. We've then got some Fighting Vipers, followed by Final Fantasy VII, the original on the PS1, ported to the PS4 in all of its blocky goodness. This is the only way to play this game. The remake sucks. We've then got some Firewatch, which is a fantastic walking sim set in a forest. You're a dude who has suffered some very unfortunate situations in his life, who has gone to escape that by getting a job as a fire watchman, believe it or not, in a national park. Quite an interesting plot kind of unfolds and then unravels into a bit of a mess by the end. But the game itself is pretty fantastic. This is a walking sim I would definitely recommend. We got the Simmy seal of approval right there. Flower 3 times. This was the game that the devs of Journey made first, where you play as a flower. Former 8 is next, followed by Frobisher Says, which that thumbnail, I'm not going to sleep after seeing that. Jeez Louise, this is why I drink. We've then got Frogger Returns, which of course is the classic jumping across a road or a series of lily pads or whatever to avoid obstacles that are moving backwards and forwards. We've got some Full Throttle, followed by Fury, which is a fantastic roguelike beat. I don't know how I'd explain Fury. It's like a boss rush kind of thing. The PS4 version has got a very, very impressive completion rate. I believe the PS5 is a lot more common because you can auto-pop stuff. Galaga Legions DX is next. It's Galaga. Game of Thrones Telltale. I'm still confused as to how that made my account last time, but here it is on your account as well, AJ. Get off my lawn. You're an old person who wants people to get off their lawn. I'm only 25, but I feel that. I feel that deep inside. We've then got some Ghostblade HD, followed by Goat Sim twice. You like a good stack, and it's always the quality ones with the goats right there. The DLC for Goat Simulator is fantastic. You've got a lot of sort of stuff like a World of Warcraft DLC, a Zombie Apocalypse DLC. I think you go to a space at one point. It's been a minute since I've played any of these. I haven't done them on Symmetry yet, but I will at some point. We've then got, we got some juice here. We got some juice here with the God of Wars. Got some Kratos, got some bald people loving, you'd love to see it, with the first game twice, the remake once, the second game twice, the third game twice, the best one in the series. It's better than 2018 in Ragnarok. Now I need Witness Protection. We've then got Ascension, Chains of Olympus, and to round it out, Ghost of Sparta. So the only one you're missing is Ragnarok. Now, AJ, we haven't seen a PS5 on this list yet. I assume you don't have one yet. Probably haven't bothered due to the fact that there's not that many exclusives. But are you waiting for Ragnarok on the PS5, or are you just waiting for a sale and are going to knock it out on the PS4? Do let me know. I assume it's probably the latter due to the fact that you've stacked quite a few of these and can potentially stack that one as well, but do let me know. Golden Axe is next, which is a classic beat 'em up from memory, followed by Gone Home, which is a game where you go home, find the house abandoned, and can beat the game in a minute. There is a trophy for doing that. It's actually I do quite like Gone Home. It's a mystery game done quite right. We've got some GT here with Gran Turismo 6. No GT5. I don't blame you. Will you be doing GT7 at some point? Grand Theft Auto's here with 3. Boy, that game's aged like milk. GTA 5 twice. Unfortunately, this might be your first unobtainable. I think this is the first game that is unobtainable for you. This makes me sad. San Andreas, and rounding out, we've got Vice City. What I am curious about is... Oh, no, I was going to say, I thought GTA 3 was the definitive edition, the really terrible ports that they did like a year ago, but it's not. That is the original, which has aged so poorly. I've done that one myself. I have started San Andreas on my accounts. I don't know if I will go back to it at some point, but, well, I'll have to because percentage makes me happy, but, 3 was miserable, and I assume 4 and I assume San Andreas and Vice City are the same sort of deal. So someone hold me, I need a hug. We've got some Gravel here, which is a racing game, followed by Grim Fandango, which is a game where you're a skeleton detective. Guacamelee next with Guacamelee 2, and Super Turbo Championship Edition. These are some very fun Metroidvanias that I definitely need to do at some point. I've had the first one installed for a very long time. Guns to Heroes, Heavy Fire, which are 2 games where you play as a giant tank that I believe are by the same. I believe that they're by Bandai Namco, the guys behind Dark Souls. Heavy Rain twice, probably the best David Cage game. That's not really saying anything. That's like saying Wednesday is a day. Horizon Chase Turbo, very hit and miss gamers. I hear some people love it, some people despise it, and there's no in between. Horizon Zero Dawn, you've got the good one, I like to see that. Followed by some Horned Night, which looks like it might be an easy peasy of some sort. Followed by Hotline Miami, both of them with 1 and 2. Both very fun, top-down, sort of very similar to the classic Grand Theft Autos. Fairly tricky. You can die to enemies that are off-screen quite a lot, but I have heard some fantastic things about them, and this is another pair of games I've had installed for the longest time that I should just sit down and smash out at some point. Hell, you beat the second one in 4 days, so they're definitely not too bad at all. Hue is like a color platformer of some description. This is another one I actually have installed and have been meaning to start at some point very soon. We then get the Infamous games here with the first game, the second game, the weird spin-off with the vampires, First Light, and Second Son. Infamous 2 is the best one. Festival of Blood is the next best one. Infamous 1 is the next best one. Second Son is the next best one. First Light doesn't exist. That's my official simi rankings of the Infamous series. Maybe I'll make a video on it with a bit more detail at some point. I do know someone asked me, I believe the name of the person was Sergi, do correct me if I'm wrong, Kurgi Sergi. I know you did ask me to revive my ranking of the series Platinums videos. I'm looking at it. I've got the script for the Assassin's Creed one still. Maybe I'll start working on that soon if I can put down my addiction to popping Platinums every day. But maybe I'll do one on Infamous as well, given that I've got all the Platinums in some various form over the years. We then have some Iron Cryptical, followed by It's Spring Again, which it's not. It's actually summer right now, and I'm very hot. Why am I wearing a long sleeve shirt? Mistakes have been made. But we then get into some Jak here, with Jak 3 twice, the first game, the Precursor Legacy, twice, the second game twice without the debug menu, so props to you, AJ. And then X Combat Racing, which is the Crash knockoff, the Crash Tag Team Racing kind of knockoff thing. I don't think particularly much about this game. Jazzpunk is a relatively short but fantastic little parody of classic things like James Bond spy movies. I adore this game and highly recommend people play it. We've got some more Telltale, early Telltale with the Jurassic Park game with all 4 episodes here, followed by some Just Cause. Wow, you Just Cause 4. AJ, do you need a hug? Are you okay? I know it's got tornadoes, but that's about all it's got going for it. Just Cause is quite an interesting series for me. I love this. I love Just Cause 2. Just Cause 3 really disappointed me. There was a lot of frame rate issues. There's a lot of challenges. I didn't like the controls. I just found it very hard to actually do anything. And then Just Cause 4, I played all of about 40 minutes and decided that was enough. I will probably go back and do this series at some point, but it is not this day. Then we got some Killzone with the first game and Mercenary. You smashed that out well and truly before the servers closed, so kudos to you. We got some Oddball here 3 times, followed by King's Quest, which is the game you're currently working on, which is a port of the classic Sierra game from the very early 90s from memory. Do correct me, I have a baby brain. But we then have Knack 2 twice, Knack being a weird launch title for the PS4, because that's a choice. And then the second game being apparently a little bit better. The first game has such a low rarity because you've got to collect Knack points or gems or something, and the chests that you get them in are RNG, which means either you're going to have a good time or you're going to be playing the game quite a few times. We then have some Kung Fury Street Rage, followed by LA Noire, which is a fantastic open world game set in LA during the 40s and 50s. Brilliant game, actually. It's got a great story that spans about a decade, followed by some LA Cops, Letter Quest, level 22. Only One Life is Strange here, which is probably all you need. I will say, AJ, the True Colors is definitely a hell of a lot better if you didn't enjoy this one right here. The rest of them... Limbo 3 times, which is actually super impressive because you've got to beat the game without dying more than 5 times. This is another one that I really should get around to doing at some point because I love Inside. Linger in the Shadows, very, very, very quick sort of demo sort of thing for the PS3. Lone Survivor is another one that I have on my account that I've had installed for ages that I should just sit down and do. This is kind of like an 8-bit side-scrolling horror game. We then have Lovers in a Dangerous Space and Time, which is another really fun sort of I don't even know how to describe that one, but it is an ultra rare and you did smash it out in a month, so that's impressive. Mad Max prior to the shutdowns in 1 week and 1 day. You love to see it. Actually, that's after the shutdowns, but I assume you'd already done a playthrough and earned the trophy for the fuel and stuff that is tied to the leaderboards that were shut. I love Mad Max. I wish I could platinum this. Madden NFL 11. You've only got 1 Madden game, probably for good reason, followed by Mafia with all 3 games at 100%, which is a hell of a lot more than I have done. I do have the 100% in Mafia 1 and 2, Mafia 1 and 3. Mafia 2's DLC, Jimmy's Vendetta, it makes me sad. It makes me the big sad. It makes me cry. It's the reason I'm bald. It has affected my life on a day-to-day basis. I'm a changed man having attempted that 1,000 miles. Essentially, to do it, you can drive around legit, which is like a good 30 hours of gameplay for no reason, or you can do a glitch where you jump through a shop window and free fall. The issue with that method is sometimes it just kind of and by sometimes I mean like 99.9% of the time, it just crashes. So you can like leave your console AFK for like 12 hours, come back, try and save, boom, crash, and then you're the big sad. We then have some Magus, which is another one of those sort of early, easy PS3 games, followed by Marvel Spider-Man and Miles Morales. I do want to do Miles Morales, and I do want to do a platinum sort of run on Miles Morales, so let me know if you are interested in that, and I'll get started. We then have some Matterfall, followed by the Max Payne 300%, which is juicy. I love to see that one right there. New York Minute is no laughing matter. Neither is the multiplayer, which is now shut, so you can't earn the platinum or the 100% anymore, of course, because that would require the platinum. But New York Hardcore, New York Minute, whatever it's called, is essentially you play on a difficulty where you have a minute and you only have 1 life. And every time you kill an enemy, the timer goes up a little bit. I think it goes back to a minute. It might only be like 15 seconds. I don't quite remember. But I do know that it is very, very risk versus reward. You know, if you push yourself too far, you're going to die. And then you go back to the start of the game. Or risk versus reward. You could win, you could get a bunch of time added to the timer, and you could cruise through. But if you die, straight back to the game. If the timer runs out, straight back to the start of the game. It's a big sad. It's scary. I never did it. I tried. I did try at one point, and it hurt me in ways I can't describe. We then have some Mega Man here with 10, 11, Legacy, and Legacy Collection 2, and X Legacy, and X Legacy Collection 2. Because if there wasn't enough Mega Man, there was like 4 collections. But 2 of them have an X in front of them, so that's how you know they're serious. We've got some Metal Gear here with tons of Liberty, which is probably the weakest one in my opinion, followed by 3, which is the best one in my opinion. I do know the boys from Plat Chums agree with me, and that's how I back myself up with hardcore science and other cool trophy hunters telling me what to say. We then have Ground Zeroes, which is like the prelude to Metal Gear Solid 5, which I notice is absent on your list. Is that one that you do plan on doing, or was Ground Zeroes kind of not really your cup of tea, given that they went open world, which it's okay. I'm just sick of open worlds in games. I really am. I don't need to spend another 38 hours in your game picking up berries and rubbing my head on races. Like, I don't need to do that. Just let me do my stuff. Just let me do the campaign, do a little bit of extra stuff, and then move on to the next game, please and thank you. Metal Slug 3, followed by Metro Last Light and Redux. Fantastic games. First-person shooters, survival horror, any of those genres, take your pick. They're all in there, merged into one apocalyptic Russian Metro. It's great fun. I love those 2 games. Exodus, it's okay. Again, it went open world. We don't need it. The best sections of the game are when they're linear. Please go back to that. Middle-earth Shadow of War, Game of the Year edition. You've done The Hunt Is My Mistress twice, which is super, super impressive. I haven't even done it once because I'm lazy. And then, of course, we have Shadow of War, which is like they took a good thing and they made it kind of very average. I'm sorry, I love Tolkien's lore, so things like the Rings of Power on Amazon and Shadow of War hurt my soul. That show was so bad. We then have some Midway Arcade Origins, followed by Mighty Number 9, which was, they were like, oh, let's make Mega Man, but then bad. Minute is kind of like a classic Zelda sort of thing, except that everything's in black and white. You can do the game very, very quickly. It's a game that it's another one I have installed that I really want to do at some point, given that my quest for indies is in full swing. We've got some MLB right here, which of course is baseball for my fellow non-Americans. And we've got the show, which is kind of like the easy prelude sort of thing that they put out every year before the main game for a bit that was free, followed by MLB The Show. The Show 18, which is unobtainable, but you did get it, which is super impressive, and the Show 20. Monster Jam Battlegrounds is followed by Monster World 4, is followed by Monster Bag. A lot of monsters right there. You've got one Mortal Kombat. It's the classic one from the arcade. Can't say I'm remotely surprised right there. Mr. Masagi was kind of one of the early easy PS4 games that, looking back, the fact that it took an hour, boy, I'm nostalgic for when that was the easy games and not these like hold L1 for 30 seconds for a platinum. That's some people enjoy them. Good on you. I haven't tried it, but I don't really plan to. We've got Murdered Soul Suspect. You're a ghost detective. I've forgotten everything about this game. Followed by some mayonnaise goodness. Who doesn't love a bit of mayonnaise right there? You did those very quickly. You must have thumbs of steel. It took me like an hour. Do you have like 6-packs on your thumbs? Is that what I should get out of this? Very impressive right there. You're going to do 2 and 3 at some points. We then have Nero, followed by Need for Speed Rivals, the only Need for Speed. This is the series I actually plan on trying to get as many of this year as possible. Next, Machina, followed by Nights in the Dream, Not a Hero, big same, followed by Nubla, another sort of puzzle sliding tile slider, easy peasy thingy. Ollie Ollie World. These are difficult. These are like side-scrolling skateboard games where you've got to beat various different trials and different types of skills. They're actually quite difficult. Followed by Orc Slayer. Kill a lot of orcs, have big wins. Alrighty, and into the P's, we got Paint Plus Plus, which is kind of like an easy peasy painting Vita sort of game, followed by some PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, which was kind of their answer to Smash on the Nintendo systems. You've got Kratos, you've got Nathan Drake, you've got all the fun people right here. We then got some Prince of Persia, we got all of them with the remake there, followed by Forgotten Sands, the Sands of Time, a lot of Sands in this series, the Two Thrones, the Warriors Warriors Within. This was kind of like the precursors to Assassin's Creed. You played as a Prince of Persia, believe it or not, as he did some adventures and some shenanigans. There was a lot of wall running. That was a fun series. I do miss it. There's one I wouldn't mind them bringing back at some point. Got some Pump BMX Plus, followed by Race the Sun, followed by like every Ratchet and Clank ride here with the first game twice, the 2016 remake, Going Commando twice, Up Your Arsenal twice, A Crack in Time, All for One, Full Frontal Assault and Into the Nexus, and Ratchet Deadlocked, which is the one I always forget exists. Was this the one that was initially a PSP game? The only one you're missing there is a Rift Apart because it is a PS5 exclusive. We've then got some Rayman here with Rayman Origins, followed by Red Dead Redemption 1, which was your first game on your account. You actually completed it in 8 years and a week, which is kind of cool to see. Only one Resident Evil here with the first game. I am guessing that you just didn't find this series that interesting. This is another series where I plan on trying to do as many of them as I can by the end of the year, alongside Need for Speed and maybe Call of Duty if I'm insane. We've then got Resistance 3 and Burning Skies, which was the Vita one. These were first-person shooters that were actually pretty fun. The third one, I remember you could do the entire game in co-op, and that's what I did. It was good fun. The prison level was fantastic from memory. Resogun twice. This was a weird launch title for the PS4. Rime, which was my first platinum. This is a adventure game where you explore an island and search for your fate or something. Riptide GP2, followed by Rogue Legacy. Saints Row 4 twice. Get Out of Hell once, which was kind of what killed the series in my opinion, and then this new remake, relaunching of the series just really sealed the deal and buried it. And then Saints Row the Third. The first two are definitely the best two. Saints Row 2 is probably one of my favorite open world games just in general. And then everything after that was kind of just a bit of a casual downhill slope until Get Out of Hell, where it plummeted. We've got some Sam & Max here. We've got a lot of Sam & Max. Beyond Time and Space, episodes 1 through 5. The Devil's Playhouse, episodes 1 through 5. And that's it. So there's two different series of Sam & Max. You've got them all, which is really cool to see. There's another big chunk of 100% without a platinum. We've got Old G's, what is this name? SBCG4AP, episode 1, Homestar Ruiner. How is that the part I struggled with? I got the first part down, and then I struggled with Homestar. Why am I me? Followed by episode 2, The Strong Badia of the Free, episode 3, The Baddest of the Bands, episode 4, Dangeresque 3, The Criminal Projective, and episode 5, 8-Bit is Enough. Sega Mega Drive and Genesis Classic right here, and the Ultimate Collection, followed by Severed, which is another game that I am semi-curious about doing at some point. Shantae, the Risky Revenge Director's Cut. This is another series that I really love and would love to get the Platinums in at some point. These are kind of side-scrolling platformers where you play as a half genie. We've got some Shenmue here, which was on the Sega Dreamcast. Remember those back in the day? This was kind of an OG open world game. I remember the dialogue choices being kind of really in-depth, where NPCs could kind of answer quite a lot of in-depth questions, which was really cool, but that's literally all I remember. We've then got some Sherlock Holmes here, which are sort of walking sim investigators, where you play as, of course, the famous literary detective, Sherlock Holmes. I've done The Devil's Daughter myself, which was fantastic, and I do really want to do Crimes and Punishments at some point very soon. Shovel Knight, The Treasure Trove, Shatsimi, followed by Skyforce Anniversary. Slain Back from Hell is another side-scroller that I kind of want to do at some point. I've heard it has fantastic music if you like heavy metal, which of course I do, so definitely going to be looking into this one at some point myself. Followed by some Sleeping Dogs with both versions of the game right there, which was kind of like a GTA but in Hong Kong, with more of an emphasis on martial arts, which was really cool. It was very free flowing, and the campaign was probably my favorite open world campaign just in general. I remember pretty much the entire thing, and I've done it multiple times. DLC's kind of poop though. We've got some Sly Cooper here, and by some I mean all of them, with 2 twice, 3 twice, the first game twice, and Thieves in Time twice. And mini games, of course, with Bentley's Hack Pack being right at the start of the video. We then have, oh no, now we've got all the Sonics as well. Geez, we've got some serious completions, which I love to see right here. But let's look at the Sonics real quick. We've got All-Stars Racing Transformed, which is a very, very tricky racing game, followed by All-Stars Racing, which is a bit easier. Sonic Adventure, which is one that you kind of dabbled in but didn't get too far. CD, Generations, Mania, Origins, The Fighter, The Hedgehog 2, The Hedgehog 4, Episode 1, Episode 2, no more episodes, they didn't release anymore. And Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection, which is all the games from the Genesis platform from the 90s. We then have like 1,000 sound shapes. This was kind of an OG easy peasy that you could stack. I remember, I think his name was Stay Potent or Stay Patient or something. There was a YouTuber from like 2016 who always talked about these being great. I never did them myself. We then have Spec Ops: The Line, which is probably one of my favorite third-person over-the-top shooters. This one's set in Dubai, and it has some very, very dark themes that it addresses, which is kind of cool. Foobarb difficulty is very difficult. We then have some Splatterhouse, followed by some Spooky Chase. All 3 Spyro games, of course. This is another series I just need to do at some point. I'm just very lazy. Stories of Path of Destiny, Streets of Rage 2 and 4, no Streets of Rage 1 or 3, followed by Strider, Super Hang-On, a very, very impressive Super Meat Boy right here. In only 2 years and 6 months, I say only, this is a sub 1% platinum that is actually very, very impressive. We've got some Super Star Wars, which following Super Meat Boy, who's surprised, you've got another hard game right there. Super Stardust Delta and HD, followed by Super Time Force Ultra. Another sub 1% platinum here in Surgeon Simulator as well, which is very, very impressive. Those controls are difficult. Taco Master, Master the Tacos, win. We've then got some Tales from Space Mutant Blob Attacks, followed by Tales of the Borderlands. A lot of Tales of Monkey Island here with Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, and Chapter 5. Some more Team Sonic with Team Sonic Racing, followed by Tearaway, which is another one I really want to do at some point. It's like a Super Mario 64 clone, but with paper. The Tekken games, and a lot of them right here with Tekken 6, 7, Tag Team Tournament, and Tag Team Tournament 2 Prologue. Tournament HDs here as well, followed by Terminator Salvation, which is an easy peasy from the PS3 ever, followed by Tesla Grad, the Book of Unwritten Tales 2, The Bunker, The Deadly Tower of Monsters, The Little Acre, The Messenger, which is another side-scroller where you play as a ninja that I've heard is very, very good, The Mummy Demastered, which was a take on, I believe, the movie, the remake of the Mummy movie with Tom Cruise that came out a few years ago, The Order 1886, which was fantastic. It's a shame we'll probably never get a sequel to that. The Revenge of Shinobi, The Swapper, The Testament of Sherlock Holmes. We've got more Sherlock Holmes right there, followed by a walking sim in Vanisher of Eve and Carter. Only one Telltale Walking Dead. I'd love to see that. Followed by The Witcher 3's 100%. The Wolf Among Us, which I've heard is the best Telltale game. This is one I really should do it myself at some point. I do own it, and it's been on my account for years. Thimbleweed Park, followed by Titan Attacks. Titan Souls, which is a side-scrolly 2D sort of game, followed by Titanfall 2. You became the master because you did it in a week, which is very impressive. I've been too lazy to do that myself. ToeJam and Earl 1 and 2, followed by Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell, which is another very impressive one that servers have tragically closed. It looks like you did them just before closure right there. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, followed by Transistor, followed by the Trine games, Trine 2 twice, Trine 3, Trine 4. As you can see, the platinum rarities of this series fluctuate like crazy. The first game, not too bad. The second game, not too bad. Trine 2, the complete story, sub 2% ultra rare. That's crazy. That's insane. Then Artifacts of Power, more than 50%. And then we round back into the sort of high uncommons with Trine 4. I think that's the one. And then Tron Enhanced Edition is just the first game remastered. Ultratron is followed by Uncanny Valley, which is another weird horror side-scroller thing that was very, very bugged when I did it back in the day. We then have all of the Uncharted with Uncharted 2 on the PS3 and the PS4. Unfortunately, this is another unobtainable for you. In fact, there's a couple here with Uncharted 3 as well. You're missing 2 trophies in Uncharted 4, which will be doing 3 stars on all the crushing levels. Big same, I know the feeling. And then, of course, you've got the weird card game on the Vita that's now unobtainable in Fight for Fortune. And then you have the other Vita game right there in Golden Abyss. And then around them all out, we have Lost Legacy. We then got Undertale, which was a game that took the internet by storm a couple of years ago. Then I think it was ported to the PS4, which was when you did it last year. The first Unraveled here, where you play as side-scrolling game where you play as a living ball of yarn, followed by Until Dawn. Valfaris is next, which is another one I've heard is pretty fantastic, followed by The Valley. Vanquish is an interesting one. This is a shooter. You might notice the rarity is so rare. It's literally because of one challenge. There's one challenge in that game that is insanely difficult. We then got some Velocity times 2, Velocity Ultra, some some fighter here in Virtua Fighter and Virtua Fighter 5. Volgar the Viking is next, which is another side scroller, followed by Volume, followed by some Watch Dogs. Wow. With Watch Dogs 1, which was unobtainable for a bit last year. So if you do want to get on it, maybe do that while the servers are a bit stable at the moment, because they have at points they have not been quite as stable. And then Watch Dogs 2, of course, which is a fantastic one. My one gripe with Watch Dogs 2, you play as a bloke who is vocally against killing people, and then you kill a lot of people. Walken Park, this was kind of like the opening game to the Vita, followed by White Knight. Whoa, Dave. And then we got some Wolfensteins here with Wolfenstein 3D, classic remake of the original, followed by the New Order, followed by the Old Blood, which I need to do myself. I just have the challenges left. No Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus, or Youngbloods. I'm not surprised with Youngbloods, but I wouldn't be surprised to see you do the New Colossus at some point in the future. We then have some Wonder Boy in Monsterland and in Monster World, followed by one WWE game in Legends of WrestleMania, which was a fantastic one that brought a bunch of different legends from different eras together for a bunch of matches. It was very, very fun. You smashed it out in 3 days and an hour. We then have some X-Men Origins Wolverine, tie into the really crap movie, but this game was actually pretty fun. X-Players Lost Memories, followed by Zeo Drifter, and then we got some Yakuzas here with Zero, Kiwami, and Kiwami 2, open world games set in Japan where you play as a member of the Yakuza. And then, of course, to wrap up this account, we have Zed Warp, which is that's 100% account right there. In fact, I am curious. Let's go to the very top. Let's do a scroll. I know this hurts your eyes. I apologize. Our completion rate here is a 98.15%, which is very, very impressive. But let's jump across to the stats real quick. So if we pop over when the internet loads. Alrighty, so as we can see here, we've got 476 games, an average rarity of 41.62, which is very impressive, 98.62% completion rate here. Judging by your account, didn't quite get into trophy hunting for a good while there, and then went ham with it in the 2017, and then you've got down into a fairly consistent sort of pulse there, very consistent sort of heartbeat for an average S rank. But AJ, thank you for letting me look at your account. That was definitely a very impressive one. Nice to see a lot of older games from like the 90s getting a bit of love right here. A couple ultra rares like Super Meat Boy and Surgeon Sim were very impressive. If you would like your own account listed, done on this, do let me know in the comments below, or join the Platinum Standard Discord. We are growing very, very rapidly, which is awesome to see right there. Trophy Hub, for everyone just to talk about trophies. It's a good time there. Do join it. I dare you. I double dare you. If you made it this far, do let me know what your favorite sport is in the comments below, and I'll see you next week. I miss you already. Hugs and kisses. Goodbye.